Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. All right. Can everyone see that? Wonderful. If you can't, feel free to message in the chat. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jordan Ashwood, and I am the Partnerships Manager for the Clinton Global Initiative University. We are so excited to have you with us today, and we're so looking forward to sharing more information with you about what this exciting social innovation challenge is, what to expect when it comes to the application, and the opportunities that there are for selected teams. So I'm going to get started with just some brief introductions for those who will be speaking on this particular session. So as I said, my name is Jordan, and I'm going to have my colleagues from Verizon and from VentureWell introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Davis from Verizon. I'm responsible for our social innovation programs, which is really about finding ways that we can develop and deploy technology solutions to have positive social and environmental impact.
And I'm Christina Tamer. I'm calling in today from Massachusetts. I work at VentureWell leading our early stage innovator program. So we'll be the partner offering the accelerator training program this summer. I have several colleagues on the line. I invite them to chat in the chat box about where they're calling in from, and we're looking forward to hearing about your innovations and finding ways to support you in the coming months.
Thank you both. And just as a notice for everyone on the call, we really would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So if in the chat box, if you could, introduce yourself, say your name, where you're calling in from, and any particular area of interest you have or major that you have, we would love to get to know you all a little bit and find out who's on the call with us. And if you do have questions throughout the session, please feel free to use the Q&A function, and we will be monitoring that throughout the session, and we'll do our best to respond to all of those questions. We'll also leave some time at the end for questions as well. All right. I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague Katie to give you a brief overview of the partnership.
Thank you, Jordan, and thanks again, everyone, for joining us and for your interest in this challenge. Verizon was really excited to launch this partnership in October of last year with CGI U and VentureWell, our partners. And really, this is all about, we believe that technology can play an important role in addressing big social challenges, recognizing that technology is not a silver bullet for some very complicated problems, but also understanding that there's an opportunity for innovation to really disrupt the status quo. And so this is about how we can bring new, innovative, and diverse thinking to some of these big challenges. And we can think of no better way to do that than to empower the next generation of innovators to bring fresh thinking, diverse perspectives, and to make sure that those ideas are being uncovered and invested in. So that's really what this challenge is all about. And this is an initiative that's part of a larger umbrella within Verizon that we call Citizen Verizon. And this is really our plan for responsible business to drive economic, environmental, and social empowerment or advancement through our company. And so the Social Innovation Challenge is really to encourage you all to submit your best ideas for how leading edge technology, things like XR technology, 5G, artificial intelligence, can help advance in a number of issue areas, particularly immersive education technology. So this is really all about how can we leverage next generation technology to create and deploy transformative learning experiences, as well as to provide equitable access to those experiences, creating engaging, immersive educational experiences for learners, potentially from kindergarten all the way through adulthood. The second prompt area is climate justice. So this is really about how we can use next-gen technology to help reduce the unequal impacts of climate change on people of color, children, aging populations, people with disability, other vulnerable populations. So we know that climate change impacts everyone, but it does not impact everyone equally. And so how can we use technology to help make sure that the burden of climate change is is not disproportionately felt by vulnerable communities. And then the last issue area is health equity. This is about how we might leverage technology to improve equitable access to healthcare and health information for underserved communities. And again, underserved may mean people of color, it may mean LGBTQ, people with disabilities, immigrants, rural populations, aging populations. There's a huge spectrum of populations who are vulnerable in our society. So taking a broad view on different populations that could be served. And I'll just say, Jordan's going to go through the process in a second, but there are a wealth of resources for you in each of these impact areas. So I just very quickly went through what each topic is about, but there will be panels on each of these issue areas coming up. And then there's a bunch of links and prompts and other documents that hopefully you've all received.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. So yes, as Katie mentioned, on the website for the Verizon and CGI U Social Innovation Challenge, there are a number of prompts. There are 3 prompts available for each of those issue areas with a lot of resources within them. So please feel free to look through those. And we will be having 3 panels tomorrow on each of those areas. So we would love for you to tune in for those. So in terms of the application itself, I wanted to go over a few things. So when it comes to eligibility, this challenge is open to all current undergraduate and graduate level students, as well as CGI U alumni. We are encouraging students to apply in teams of 2 to 3. So you do need to have at least one other team member in addition to yourself in order to apply. Students do not need to, or CGI U alum, do not have to be from the same institution. So feel free to team up with a friend if you have a friend at another institution. That works great. When it comes to the application itself, it's really comprised of 2 main components in addition to providing your contact information. It's a short 3-minute video where we would love for you to introduce yourselves and for us to just get to know you as people a bit more. And then the project summary. So on the application itself online, you'll see that there are a few short answer questions that we would love for you to answer. And I'll go through these in a little bit more detail on the next slide, but in general, we're looking for you to demonstrate an understanding of the problem area that you've selected, and then to show us through your solution that you're putting forward, how is it innovative? How is it different or distinct from other approaches thus far? Can you talk us through the feasibility of the technology that you're planning to use? How do you expect it to impact the certain communities that you're targeting? Can it grow? Can it scale over time? So these are some of the things that we really would love for you to answer in short answer paragraphs in the application itself. So the application deadline is April 1st. So you have a little under a month to put together your applications. And really, again, this week, the design sprint is designed to help you put together the strongest application that you can. So again, I encourage you to attend the other sessions this week because they will give really good insight into the 3 prompt areas, but also into what do we mean by leading edge technology? How can you connect that to social impact? And then we'll also have office hours at the end of the week with experts from Verizon, from the Clinton Foundation, and from VentureWell as well. So you'll be able to tune into those sessions and ask us any questions that you might have as you're trying to think about, what would make a strong application. So I also want to take a moment to go over the rubric that we're going to be using to assess your applications. I think it's really important that a rubric is public facing so that you know how and where we're going to be assessing you so that you can put together a really strong application. So I do encourage all of you as you're putting together your applications to align it with this rubric as much as you can and to know that we're going to be assessing your applications in these 6 areas. So understanding of the problem at the very top. So understanding the scope of the problem, the origins of it, the significance of it. We'll also be looking at innovation, like I said. So, how does your project address an unmet need? How does it distinguish itself from other existing approaches? Then when it comes to technical feasibility, we would love for you to share a discussion of the underlying technology. You don't need to go into extensive detail. There's not space for that in the application, but we do want to get a sense of, what technology you're thinking about using, what your plan is for the development of that technology if you haven't developed it yet, and to address any, privacy issues that might come up. Next, we will be looking at impact. So, which populations are you hoping to support to address an unmet need within? And we want to make sure that there's clear relevance to those communities. We want you to have demonstrated that you've thought about those communities, you've connected with those communities and understand, what the underlying issues are and how your solution best aligns with the needs that there might be. Then when it comes to scalability, again, as I mentioned before, this is really us trying to understand and for you to demonstrate to us how you expect your solution to grow over time and how it can be scaled, in a large way, what options there are for revenue streams. So any information like that that you can share at this point of the application would be great. And then lastly, the communication piece, this really comes into the video submission portion. And so what we're looking here is to see how you communicate your ideas, to see how you engage with others, and to hear any discussion of personal skill sets, whether that's leadership skills or technical skills that you'll be bringing to the table that you think will make your application particularly strong. So I wanted to give you an overview that this is exactly how we're going to be assessing you. So I hope it's helpful, and please do use it while you're considering applying and putting together an application.
And there's a couple of questions in the chat that we might want to answer quickly before we move to the next spot. There's a few different people asking whether or not these have to be US based or can they be global?
Yes, thank you, Katie. So great question for those who have asked that. So you are eligible to apply to this if you are from any country in the world. You do not need to be a US citizen. So that's the first thing. In terms of the solutions that you put forward, we do ask that they are either focused on an issue within the United States or that they can be easily replicated within the US context.
Thank you.
Other questions, Katie, that have come up that I should address maybe publicly?
Just one, if the video submission requires that all the team members speak.
Great question. So it is not required that all the team members speak. I would love to see all the team members, featured in some way, but we don't want you to go into extensive editing of the video, especially if you're in different places. So do not worry about that. I would just make sure that if you do have one sort of team leader who's doing the video, that you do share some information about your teammates if they can't be present within the video as well. Okay, I'll move ahead for now, but feel free to keep adding questions and I can continue to address them. Okay, so in terms of the opportunities for selected teams, so as I said, the deadline is April 1st. We will be letting teams know throughout April, and really we'll be selecting teams by early May. So you should have plenty of time to plan for the summer. But really, you will be receiving an exclusive spot in a summer program with VentureWell, and you'll be receiving hands-on entrepreneurial training to develop and scale your idea. And so this is something that my colleague Christina will go into more detail on what exactly that summer programming will look like and what you can expect. Each team, though, will also receive approximately $20,000, and a piece of that will go towards seed funding for your project, but each team member will also receive a living stipend as well for the summer. You'll also throughout the year be receiving access to networking and mentorship opportunities, the CGI U 2021 curriculum, and really this all culminates at the end of the summer in September, where the selected teams are able to pitch their project in a showcase, and the top 3 teams from that showcase will receive additional resources and the opportunity to continue on with VentureWell. So again, my colleague Christina will go into more detail on what that experience really will look like. But these are some exciting opportunities for selected teams. And so, we really encourage you to think about applying, and we can't wait to see what you put forward. So with that, I'm going to pause and just see if there are any questions that have any additional questions that have come through. I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn the mic over to Christina.
All right, thanks, Jordan. I'm going to bring up my slides. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Christina Tamer, and I'm with VentureWell, and we're the accelerator partner for this program. So I'll talk a little bit about who VentureWell is. We're really excited to be working alongside such reputable and well-aligned partners like Verizon and the Clinton Global Initiative. So VentureWell is probably a little bit lesser known to you, but we're a nonprofit organization and we've been around for 25 years. We're working to support innovators, inventors, and innovators like many of you on the call who are all using science and technology to solve really big and important challenges. So health equity, climate justice, and education technology is really well aligned with what we're trying to do and use technology to make a big impact on those problems. And you'll see our tagline is idea to impact. So we're really comfortable with early stage innovations and the journey that you must take in order to get to realizing your impact. And the way we do this is through the E-Team program, which I'll talk about a little bit more in detail, but that's the accelerator essentially that you'd be participating in this summer if you're accepted. And this is our program designed to help young entrepreneurs move their ideas from a lab or a classroom or a concept into a marketplace, which is where you can actually realize the impact that you're looking to have. And this program has been around for a couple decades now. We've given away nearly $10 million in grant funding, nearly 1,000 teams, or 1,000 across 1,000 grants. Teams have gone on to get multiple grants from us over the years. We've worked with many universities all around the country, and the startups that have come out of our program have raised $470 million, and that continues to go up. Every time I refresh on Salesforce, the ticker continues to climb. And even if a startup doesn't work out, we are still really proud of all the individuals that we get the chance to meet. Even if your startup maybe pivots or goes in a different direction, or you decide a different career path, we still hope that you can take some really great lessons with you, some increased confidence, some increased leadership skills, and we'd love to add you to our family of innovators and entrepreneurs. The program, as I mentioned, offers grant funding. It's some of the earliest funding you can get as a startup or an entrepreneur or an innovator. As I've mentioned, we've been doing this for a long time. So there's sort of a self-regenerating network of alumni that continues to help each other. And many of those alumni come back as mentors to support other upcoming E-teams. You get a spot in the training. A lot of people come to us for the money and stay for the training. So we're really excited to offer that to you this summer. And our teams are nationally recognized. We're excited to have the Clinton and the Verizon relationship to continue to magnify the credibility of the work that you're doing. So the program has 3 stages. The first stage is where you would be starting. It's a $5,000 grant for technology development and business development, and CGI U and Verizon are generously adding additional living stipend expenses on top of that 5K. So that'll add up to about 20K depending on final numbers per team. And you would participate in this program, and it's all about helping you understand the different pathways for moving your venture and your innovation forward. We talk about how you articulate the value proposition, which is your customer, and the problem that they have, and how you're solving the problem, and how you're doing it better than other people. And also assessing the overall market. That includes the value chain, the landscape, and the general environment. If you continue on in the program, there's a chance for an additional $20,000 grant for technical development and business development in our Propel course, which is all about building and validating your business model. We help you do what we call customer discovery, which is talking to the people that are facing the problem that you're solving and other people that are trying to solve the problem that you're solving. So you can learn about what's being done and how you can be most effective. And then lastly, the stage 3 of the program is our Aspire course, which is all about fundraising if you decide to pursue your venture full time. So the timeline and the details of this program would run from June 1st to August 31st. The first 3 weeks would be all getting you onboarded. So getting your funding set up, having you come to an orientation webinar with your cohort. There'll be 15 teams in the cohort. We'll get to know you individually. You'll have introduction calls with VentureWell staff, and you'll do some pre-work assignments, including reading and some reflections and some additional work to make sure you can hit the ground running. We'll have a 1-week workshop in the middle of June, June 21st, that week. It'll be virtual, and it's our Pioneer course that I mentioned at the beginning that goes along with the Stage 1 grant. And it'll consist of lectures, breakout groups, so you get to learn from your peers and see how they approach assignments and share with them what you're doing and get their feedback. in addition to feedback from the mentors and coaches that are embedded in the program. And you'll also spend a lot of time with your team. As you know, you're applying in teams of 2 or 3, so you'll be spending a lot of time with your teammate, both during that week and throughout the whole summer. And then lastly, from June, the end of June onwards, the expectation is that you would continue to work independently on customer discovery and technology development using a roadmap that we set up together in the workshop. You would check in individually with your assigned VentureWell portfolio manager throughout the summer, and there'll be office hours with a wide variety of network mentors and experts from our network that will tap the Verizon network and the Clinton Global Initiative network as well. And there'll be webinars and additional learning sessions to continue and further your learning. So this is the outline of the program. We hope to see many of you applying and hope to see you in the program this summer. Again, my name is Christina and I'm available for office hours this Friday, and happy to turn it over to Jordan again for more questions and answers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christina. So I've been responding to questions in the Q&A function, and I think we have most of them answered at this point. I did have a question that I just thought was worth addressing live as well. We accept projects at any stage really that they're at. So, you know, you can be an initial ideation phase where you have an idea and you think that it could work, where we welcome that stage. If you're more sort of in a middle stage, that's also wonderful. All I'll say is that, you know, you want to be able to benefit ultimately from the VentureWell summer programming. So you don't want to be so far along that you're not able to benefit from that training to really develop and market and scale your idea. So I'll say that on that. In terms of connecting with other team members, because that has come up as well. So we have a Slack channel. And all you need to do is email me your name, your full name, and your email address, and I can get you added to that Slack channel. So I'm just going to put into the chat my email so that you have it. And please feel free to email me. We would love to see as many of you on the Slack channel as possible. It's a great way to connect with other interested applicants and to identify a team member if that's something that you're looking for. I also have a question. Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, no, I was just going to call out some of the other questions. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so we also have a question on the $20,000. So great question. So of the $20,000, approximately $5,000 of it will go towards seed funding for your project, and approximately $6,000 per team member will go towards a living stipend for each team member. So that's the breakdown of that. And in terms of a target audience, really that's up to you. I mean, I think the best way to think about it is to look at those 3 prompt areas and to consider which communities are impacted by each of those issue areas, and think about which community you would like to think about developing a solution towards. Because there, as Katie mentioned at the top of the call, there could be many different audiences who are being disproportionately impacted by each of these challenges.
And a couple questions, Christina, probably for you about the schedule and the time commitment for the summer opportunity.
Yeah, so you would expect to spend about, besides the workshop week, about 5 hours per week doing scheduled Zoom time, either as a group or with your mentor. But the expectation beyond that scheduled time is that you are actively interviewing customers, interviewing potential stakeholders, potential partners in the ecosystem, and working on your technology. So the 1 week workshop is a full-time commitment that particular week, where we'll set you up for the rest of the summer. But you should be planning to allocate, you know, your full-time focus primarily to this project.
Wonderful.
I was going to say, I saw a couple questions about sharing videos of past entrants and successful submissions from the past. This is a brand new program, so we don't have those things. And we really don't want to, you know, stifle your creativity. I will say the video itself is not meant to be like a high production value submission, right? Like, think of yourself talking to camera, and it's really just to get to know you all who are part of the team. So it's not meant to be anything flashy or fancy. And in fact, I think we say it should not be, but it's really just, you know, a way to get to know you a little better off the page.
And I'll also add, in terms of the types of questions that we would love for you to answer in the video, all of those questions are listed on the application itself online. So there are clear instructions in there for what we expect from the video. But again, as Katie said, this should not be a high production lift at all. There was also a question about the CGI U 2021 curriculum. So really for that, there are a series of webinars that we'll be hosting throughout this calendar year and other opportunities to connect with mentors. And so all of those opportunities will be available for selected teams. And in terms of, I saw a question on whether your project can be targeted at 2 issue areas. Katie, I defer to you if you have any thoughts on that. I think that there are natural intersections between these 3 areas. So if you have a thought on a project that would address multiple areas, I think that that is probably fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say actually the way we're looking at scoring these for transparency, we're not necessarily looking for a set number in each category. We would like to have some projects across each category, but it's not as though, we have to have exactly 5 in each bucket or anything like that. So yeah, I would say submit the best proposal you have that addresses the issues in the best way.
And I see one other question here. If you're unable to attend part of the summer programming, will you still get an opportunity to participate in the program? So Christina, I'll defer to you on that question.
Yeah, the expectation is that you would participate fully. The living stipend does require full participation. There can be one excused absence from the program, but if it's something that it seems like you won't be able to make the commitment to the full-time initiative on the project or focus on the project, I would flag, the reason or why in your outreach to us, but it may be an issue in terms of applying to the program.
And just when you say in person, I assume you mean virtually in person, whomever asked this question, because just to re-emphasize, the program it's not physically in person.
Yes, so yeah, thank you, Katie. All the programming will be virtual for this summer. Okay, I think we've answered all of the questions that I can see on my end. I'm just going to give another few seconds. Does anyone have any other questions that they would like to get answered? And if so, please feel free to put those into the Q&A. I have a question about standard length of the proposal. So on the application itself, it dictates for each short answer question the max number of words. And I do believe that all of those questions totaled, the proposal cannot be longer than 1,500 words. So it's enough space to tell us what you're thinking about, but it's not a really long proposal that we're asking for. And I'm just looking at any other questions here. In terms of how we will evaluate your applications virtually. So we will be using that rubric that I walked through earlier to assess your applications. And it will be a combination of folks from the Verizon side, the Clinton Foundation side, and the VentureWell side, as well as some external topic area experts as well.
See a couple questions about gap year student and rising freshman. I would say hopefully this answers both of those questions. You need to have an affiliation with a university that's active, correct, Christina? Is that the right way to say it?
Yes, yeah. So you would need to, if you're going to the university, you would need to get an administrative contact from your Office of Sponsored Programs or equivalent. So you should ask them if you're interested in applying, even if you're on a gap year or not enrolled yet, or you're enrolling in the fall, if it's something that they'd be willing to administer on your behalf.
Thank you, Christina. I have a question here about office hours. So the office hours are really a great time to go to experts at Verizon, the Clinton Foundation, and VentureWell with any questions that you have about the application. So we won't be able to review your application responses with you, but we can answer any questions that you might have as you're putting together your application.
I see a question about, are we looking for business enterprises, social enterprises, or both? That's a great question. We're really agnostic to your organizational structure, and also assume many of you don't have an organizational structure yet. So, whether it is a for-profit idea that you have in mind, or even a nonprofit idea, I think the VentureWell training will do a great job of helping you to set up a sustainable model for your technology. So we're really interested in the best ideas, regardless of how you bring them to market.
There's also a question here about alumni and if alumni need to be students as well, and you do not. If you're an alumni of the CGI U program, you do not need to be a student currently. I'm just looking through any other questions. There was a question about an advisor for your application. If on the application form, we really would just like there to be a verification process that you are enrolled in your university. So that's really what that person is for. But of course, we welcome you to connect with other professors on your campuses because they can absolutely make great mentors as you're putting together an application.
And I'll just add on to that, if you are down selected, you will, as I mentioned, need to get that fiscal sponsorship information. So that administrative contact potentially in your office of sponsored programs.
And I'm having a question here about the recording of this webinar. So yes, it is being recorded and we will be making it available shortly after the presentation. So thank you for that question.
I can answer the IP question quickly. So if you haven't yet filed a provisional patent, which I encourage you to look into because it is a first to file rather than a first to invent world that we live in, but you don't need to be, even if you haven't filed a provisional yet, you don't need to be disclosing anything about how the technology works, your secret sauce. It's not too much of a technical proposal. Describe what it is, describe that it works if you've gotten that information and why it's a good solution for the proposed problem you're solving, but we don't need the secret sauce of how it actually works.
There's also a question here, Christina, on fiscal sponsorship and what we mean by that. Do you mind just giving a quick recap of that?
Yeah, so most of the teams I anticipate are unincorporated. So in order to not give money for technical development and business development to individuals, if you're a student, we are going to give that 5K that's earmarked for the business development and technical development to the university. In that case, the university does need to be aware that they're taking on this funding. So that faculty advisor ideally will be identified, and also a administrative contact. So that's typically someone in your office of sponsored programs or sponsored research. And that's somebody that I suggest you try to identify now so you can give them a heads up that you're applying for this program.
Thank you, Christina. I'm just looking through and I think we have answered, oh, I'm seeing some other questions come in. So another question about eligibility. So if you are a CGI U alum, you are eligible to apply. So you don't have to be currently enrolled in an institution of higher education if you are a CGI U alum. And again, as there was limit, so there's a question about putting together a strong application, and as there's only 1,500 words. So this is also an exercise in communicating your ideas concisely and in an engaged way. So, you know, we've allocated space for you to be able to share those ideas, but ultimately we want you to be able to do so concisely and also to share who you are, of course, individually through the video as well. So we'll be evaluating you using that same rubric that I showed, and we'll of course be taking into consideration that you aren't able to submit extremely long proposals. So I hope that helps. There's a question that came up: if you've just been selected for CGI U 2021, that cohort, is it a good idea to apply? Yes, it's absolutely a great idea to apply. This opportunity is definitely open to those who have just been admitted as well as other students. And I'm just checking. So again, for CGI U alumni, if you have just graduated, that's fine, because as a CGI U alum, you are eligible.
I see one question at the top. Are emerging and untested technologies appropriate for this program? I would say yes. We will be looking for, and Christina, jump in if I'm misspeaking, but we'll be looking for, one, what is your testing plan? And two, is there sort of a credible possibility of this being developed into a technology? So understand that a lot of these might be early ideas, but we do want to see ideas, one, that you have a thought towards how you would test them, and two, that there's just sort of a basic like theory of the case on how the technology might work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. I'm looking through and I think we have answered all of the questions I can see in here. Any other questions before we close out this session? All right, I think we have folks typing answers to some of the students who just raised questions, so that's great. All right, well, thank you all for attending. We have another exciting webinar on what exactly we mean by leading edge technology and how does it connect to social impact, happening in just 18 minutes. So we encourage you to join for that, as it will be super interactive, really fun, and give you some good context on what we mean by leading edge technology. So like I said, again, this session is recorded and we'll be making it available on the Design Sprint website shortly. If you're interested in joining the Slack channel, please email me your full name and your email address and we'll get you added. And again, thank you all for attending, and we are so excited to see what you put forth in your applications.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.